call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.
What up? Welcome back once again to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my McFarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now today we will be taking a look at Batman from the Dark Knights of Steel storyline. Now, don't really know much about the storyline. So basically, all that I'm seeing is another Batman from another time. Now, we have gotten a couple of these that have been pretty awesome. I do own the Page Puncher's Caveman Batman. I just haven't gotten around to opening him up, but a lot of people really rave about that figure. So that would be another one that we just add to the different versions of Batman throughout time and existence. Now, who knows if we will get any of the other characters that are from the storyline, like Superman and Wonder Woman. But he does look rather interesting, and I am looking forward to taking a closer look at him. And though he does look pretty forged in the packaging, let's go ahead and take a more detailed look at him. Now, he does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stand. Now, of course, these are not really needed, but sometimes they do come in useful. He also comes with a data file card. On the front, you do have some source material from the storyline in his sort of round table version, medieval style Batman with a pretty sick set of armor that he's wearing. It made him look really, really cool. On the back, you do have some information. So we'll hold on to this. Now, he only comes with one accessory, and that is his sword. Looks really good, nicely detailed. You got a really cool sort of gold that kind of almost hints a little bit of copper tone. And you have a cool, nice blade that tapers down into a really cool point. But nice looking blade. We'll hold on to that. And let's go ahead and take a closer look at him. First impressions, definitely a version of Batman, just like if he lived in medieval times or in the Arthurian age, or if he was hanging out with Merlin or anything like that. So pretty interesting. Now, I have seen in the images that you could see online that they do have a couple of closer shots of him where you can actually get a lot more detail and closer look at what is sculpted on this figure but is not painted. So you don't necessarily have to look at this figure and just think he's going to be all armored or anything. In his sculpt work, he does have a lot of straps and buckles and things like that. So it's a rather interesting sculpt job that they did on him. And of course, you could tie it all back to the images that you could see online and get an idea of if you want to repaint him and add some more detail, because per usual, the $20 versions of McFarlane figures, no extra hands, just one accessory, but he does have a ton of potential. So all in all, first impressions, I do like him. You know, I'm a big Batman fan, so I enjoy all the different versions of Batman that we get. There's very little times that I've been disappointed in an alternate version of Batman. And like I said before, in the end, you'll have a cool sort of hall of armor of Batman throughout the ages, which is pretty sweet. So with a first look, pretty cool armored up Batman. Maybe a little bit of sort of Robin Hood-esque sort of detail to the costume, where it's not so necessarily like a knight, like where he's fully armored, but where he just has armor plating, but underneath he has a lot of more cloth details to the costume that would actually make him more flexible and allow him to fight, you know, out there in the forest and things like that. So pretty interesting. Let's take a look at the head sculpt. Awesome head sculpt. I really dig this head sculpt. The only thing I would say is that if you look at the images, his cowl isn't necessarily supposed to be all black. In the images, you do have a little bit of arm like steel, sort of grayish metallic color, and then a lot of scratches. I think that's my favorite part, is he does have some battle damage on that helmet, which would actually pop a little bit better with a little bit of paint work done on him. So I'm definitely going to look into doing that. But all in all, love the head sculpt. Now I do like the static look they gave to his, exposed portion of the mouth. Gives him a sort of stoic, knightful look, which really matches with the character. And then you do have some cool details like straps and sort of other, parts of the cowl that are added in. So, like I said, you can look up reference material images and get some cool painting ideas that you could bring out those details in the head sculpt. Take a look at the articulation. He actually looks down really well. Actually looks up with some good range on this head. And then you got right to left. And of course, you could tilt his head for some character. Pretty sweet. Going down, you've got that big, bulky chest armor. They did a good job of meshing it together with the lower abdomen part. You got a nice sort of leather vintage utility belt. So that utility belt is definitely taking it back to the dark ages. So all in all, awesome figure. Let's take a look at the waist articulation. You do have side to side, which works really well. You have that full tilt-a-whirl at the upper torso. If you look under here, under like his sort of cloak or tunic, he does have a lower waist swivel. Add on the upper chest swivel, which means you could twist him to get him in some cool battle poses. Now, he does have a slight crunch, but that's one thing about crunches, is that if you're armored up or you're a bulky figure, you don't necessarily have to get into, you know, Nightwing style poses. So it doesn't really bother me that the crunch is minimal, because if you really were wearing armor, you would have limited mobility. Trust me, I know. But of course, per usual, he could lean back for some epic jumping war poses. So pretty nice. Take a look at the shoulders. Now they really incorporated that socket and bushing joint here. The bushing, the ring actually has added detailed texture the way that the rest of the costume does, which is a really nice detail, and it has tons of mobility, tons of movement. Really a fluid movement that it has is awesome. You could move it around. You got up and down, you got front to back. Bicep swivel. Now, this is a different kind of bicep swivel. It is actually cut underneath this part of his costume. And then you got the double jointed elbows, which actually look awesome. Straighten them back out. You got some nice armor shoulder pauldrons, but they do have a little bit of flex. This is where they start getting into adding a lot of grain and texture in the costume. You could see it there, the chainmail mixed in with the cloth. Definitely need to look up some images to where you could see the separation of the materials. And if you do a repaint, you have a sort of reference that you could go on. Pretty nice interpretation of forearm gauntlets that actually have the gauntlet spikes incorporated in it, which actually is awesome. Going down into some sort of armored gloved hands. Now, of course, you do have the sculpted out wrist joint, which gives you the 4 ways of articulation, which will come in handy as this figure is a sword wielding character. And on the other side, you have the same thing with an other open hand. Let's check out the T-pose. Now the pauldron does slide pretty gracefully over the shoulder to get him into an awesome T-pose. You can move his arms above his head with no problem. Great articulation. Let's move down. Now, it's going to be kind of hard to see the thigh swivel here because of, this lower part of his cloak. But you do have a little bit there. You could see it more, where you can move his boot from side to side without a thigh cut. really have to be careful kicking up because you have this sort of stress building up right here in this little cut in his tunic. So you could actually see it start stressing. I'm not sure if you could actually cut that. And although it'll be separated, you'll get a lot more range out of it. It's up to you. But kicking back, he has no problem. Kick back really nicely. Check out his hip articulation because it's kind of weird with the tunic, but he does have that twisting hip articulation. Double jointed knees that look really nice. Straighten them out. Up, down at the ankle, right to left. Oh, beautiful rocker and toe articulation. Now, before we go, let's take a complete look at the lower body. Now, aside from the awesome texture that they added to the pants part of the costume, the lower part, you got awesome sculpt work on the knee pads and also on the shin guards, which look really nice. Now, like I said, definitely need to look up some images from the comics so you could kind of match up if you want to do these like in a shiny silver or have a little bit of iron, sort of gunmetal, I guess you could say, color to them. One thing I did notice is this huge ankle ball joint, and it is not sculpted out, but it is covered by these sort of shin guards, so you can't see it. But although it is really huge and cumbersome, one thing, it has a lot of smooth motion. So although it's, kind of an exaggerated size for a ankle ball joint, haven't seen anything like this since like Hellbat armor. He has really smooth articulation at the ankle. So it's definitely not a negative and definitely does not stick out as a problem with this figure. Pretty interesting style of shoe that they went with for as well. Pretty unique. Take a look at him from the bottom. No tread, but he does have some identifying marks. Moving up the back, pretty nice that they added once again the detail to the knee hinge. So it's not just a plain hinge. They actually added texture to it, which is a really cool detail. Going into the back, you got the back of that cool leather belt, pouches. You have the sword sheath, which once again, I'm not sure why McFarlane refuses to just do a regular sheath. It always has to have this sort of halfway formed version. I'm not sure what's up with that. Molded cape with some, rips in it. The sheath actually sticks through there. And you can actually see that when you put it in, it doesn't actually hit all the way in like it should be, holstered. But, if you bypass this little piece here, it should actually go all the way in like this. But it actually is, the sword is too long even for the end of the sword sheath. So now, that's not the perfect design, but I mean, it does work. You put the sword in there and it does stay in there and hold in there. Just, I'm not too happy the way they designed it. You do see a little bit of a hood here, like if he should have a hood, to go over his cowl, and some nice detailed work along the collar here. And if you leave the sword in there, he could, it rides a little bit high. Like I said, it should be more down to where you can't see the hilt as much. But for right now, that's fine. I don't know if maybe I'll switch this out for a different sheath or, just leave it like that. But that is one negative. I did not like the way they did that sword sheath. But if you get the sword, he can hold it very nicely. You could get him into a lot of poses. That's one thing that's cool about the McFarlane wrist and ankle joints is they have a lot of range to where you could, do poses that you can't normally do with figures that just have the two directional hinge. You can actually get them to manipulate their weapons rather nicely. This guy can, basically hold his sword like straight out, which is something cool when you do figure photography and poses and stuff like that. Another thing is you can get him to hold the sword with both hands, which is another cool advantage that the wrist joints give you, where you can actually manipulate the hands to actually hold it, with both hands. I mean, like I said, another version of Batman in a different timeline. We have received some other ones. Like, I want to bring out the Gladiator Batman, just so you could get some scale. The Gladiator one is a little bit taller than this Knight one. Not sure if that's a problem. But this Gladiator Batman is another one that just has a lot of cool detail and texture design. Actually executed really well. Love the head sculpt. I mean, like I said, you're going to definitely have your array of Batmans throughout time when we're done with this whole multiverse collection. Another one I wanted to bring out was this um, McFarlane designed Batman, if not only for the fact that he's sort of like a steampunk version of Batman. Now, this is my custom one where he used to have those knives that were like on his hip that really looked out of place and not really comfortable to have on your belt. And I actually moved them to the back where they look a lot better, added some pouches to fill in that gap, did a ton of paintwork on all the different weapons that he has and little capsules on his belt. And one of the main things I did, which I really enjoyed, was he has these sort of goggles that feed into that steampunk, design. But I actually added a clear lens to the left eye just to give him that added cool little detail where you could see his eye through the lens. But like I said, just another figure you can add to your Batmans from from different points in history. Pretty cool. I mean, I didn't expect much from this figure, so just go ahead and add them to the collection. I may really want to add all the repainted details and bring out just a little bit more character to this sort of Batman from medieval times. Now, he is going to look awesome on the shelf. I hope maybe we end up getting the other versions of the other heroes from this tie line. But you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.